fellow blenders, and welcome to episode number 130. Nice round number. Wow. 130 of Real Blend, a podcast that would like to know Russell Crowe's favorite Disney princess. My name is Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at Cinema Blend. As you can see, if you're watching the YouTube version of the show, I'm wearing my Kill Bill Volume 1 t-shirt.
But what people can't see is that it's only half a shirt, and it's actually a crop top, and it stops right below the frame so that your beautiful washboard abs can be seen by all.
Fairly certain I never had those, but thank you very much. This week, we are going to be catching up with some very big news. Things that happened right after we recorded the previous episode of Real Blend, including Mulan moving to Disney+, and then Judd Apatow, the great Judd Apatow, is going to be joining us as our guest this week. We're talking the King of Staten Island coming to digital and home video. And then we get into a lot of really great stuff from his filmography. But before we get there, joining me as always is Jake Hamilton from Fox 32 in Chicago. Hi, Jakey.
I felt so. You legitimately tweeted earlier today, like, big guest on the show today. Yeah. And I kind of like sarcastically, but also not tweeted back, like, who is it? I forgot we had Judd Apatow on the show.
Well, we did it, to be fair. We did it like a week ago.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And time is a blur. I keep thinking we're recording this on a Wednesday. I keep thinking it's Thursday. Like, I don't know.
Now, I got to ask, too, in the third chair, producer Gabe.
Yeah!
Gabe, are you going to be on video?
Yeah.
You'll be on
How's
video today?
Yeah.
That's outstanding. So Kevin
Give the people
McCarthy
that pretty face
of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. is on vacation. And Gabe, who has never really done this, is stepping up to join the full show. How are you, sir?
We'll see how it goes. I'm good. I will say Kevin is technically on the show this week because he did do the Judd Apatow interview. So if you feel like you're missing Kevin as we are, he'll still be here later.
We also think he's going to be sending us a BlendGame.
He's supposed to. Hashtag if it happens with our own stuff.
Hashtag if it happens.
Because later on in the show, we're going to be playing Regina King Blend. And we opened it up because of her amazing work across multiple mediums. We allowed people to pick from film and television. So we will get to that later on the show. Plugs, which we always do at the top of each episode. We have a brand new YouTube channel that we are asking people to go over and to subscribe to. Gabe, why don't you weigh in? Because we actually have two. Do we not?
Yes, we have two channels. You can check the show notes, the description, to get links to those channels so you can subscribe. The first channel is going to be just a main Real Blend channel, and that's where all these full episodes are going to go. So instead of on CB's channel, you can find them there. Subscribe, turn on your notifications. You'll get those. And then we also are going to have a Real Blend Clips channel, which will just be fun clips that we pull out from the show. One, to help find a new audience, but also make it easier for you guys to revisit things and share them with friends. But also, importantly, the Clips channel is going to include spoiler stuff. So every once in a while, we will interview someone, and we really need to get a couple spoiler questions in, but we can't really publish it with the interview because it's, we don't want to spoil the movie for anybody. So moving forward, when we get those sort of opportunities, we'll upload those as like a separate little clip to share with you guys. And so you'll want to be subscribed there as well in order to get all that fun stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we are also available for you guys to download all of our episodes wherever you find your weekly podcasts, whether it be Spotify or Apple iTunes and all of that jazz. Before we get into our weekly poll, Jake, I want to ask you a question because you got this great 3-part presentation for Oliver Stone that's airing on your channel, but it's also, are you putting it on your YouTube channel for people?
I can't because as you saw in the video, there's just so many like elements of music and clips that it lights up like a Christmas tree when it comes to copyright issues.
Oh, and the music you picked is so perfect for...
but it's so popular. I use a lot of like 70s songs that are associated with Vietnam and sort of that area in which his book is focused, and which I think makes it better. But I mean, I tried uploading it twice to just get it to my station to be able to air, and it got blocked instantly both times.
Like a copyright infringement.
Yeah, copyright infringement. So unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to upload it to YouTube. But if you follow me on Instagram at Jake's Takes, I actually just uploaded the entire 10-minute piece onto my Instagram page as one post. That's cool. An Instagram like TV or Instagram video.
You didn't do like 37 story clips?
I did not. But I text you guys. I wanted to bring it up because if you guys are, I feel like anyone who listens to this podcast obviously is a fan of like behind the scenes stories and what goes into it. I'm a really big, like in the past couple of years, I've been getting into like books about the making of movies. I read one called Space Odyssey last year or the year before after seeing 2001 in 70 millimeter here in Chicago. And it's an incredible story about Stanley Kubrick and the making of 2001. But the reason I got Oliver Stone is because he has this new book out. It's called Chasing the Light. And it doesn't cover his whole career, but it's about his early life, his time in Vietnam, his early career as a screenwriter, writing Scarface and Midnight Express, and then sort of ends as he became a director with Salvador and Platoon. And then, honestly, he could make a sequel to this if you wanted to. It's a great read.
Do you think he will continue going?
I told him that I want him to, because I want to hear about, he references briefly other movies, like whenever he is working with Pacino on Scarface. They also, Pacino was originally going to play the Tom Cruise part in Born on the 4th of July, and it was going to be directed by William Friedkin.
What?
And and that was in development in the late 70s. And he talks about how, he said Pacino was incredible. And, they were 3 weeks away from beginning filming. And he said Pacino was incredible. He said he was a little old for, the high school parts, which Cruise was good at because he had such a baby face. But he said that from what he saw and how Cruise was going to play that role, it was going to be unbelievable. Obviously, it ended up working out because he ended up getting to direct the film a decade later and won an Oscar for directing it. But a lot of stories like that. So he doesn't really go into a ton of films post-Platoon unless it's relevant to what he's talking about in the moment. But if you're a fan of just reading, and it's an autobiography, so he wrote it. It's a hell of a read. It's called Chasing the Light if you're a fan of it.
Okay. That's awesome. All right, let's get to the weekly poll. So we responded to this, the John Wick 4 and John Wick 5 getting greenlit, and the news that they are going to film these back to back. And I'm going to admit personally that I'm a little bit fatigued with the John Wick franchise after the third one.
You're telling me.
So Gabe did a supercut of every kill.
I've done a couple.
Those are great, though. I don't envy you for editing them. But damn, man.
They're tedious, but I am proud of them. They're pretty good. Do
you remember the count?
Pretty clever cuts.
Do you remember the count?
280 something, I think, maybe.
All right, so
Gabe is not as much of a showboat as I am. I do anything professionally and I send it to everyone else in the Real Blend thread. Guys, stop what you're doing and watch this right now. This is one of the few moments where I feel like Gabe actually sent us something, and I remember thinking he doesn't send us things that he does. This must be, and it was incredible. If you haven't seen it, it's incredible. But I remember thinking he must be proud of this because he sent it to us and he doesn't send us. And he's not I sneeze, and if I catch it on video, I send it to these guys.
It's cool. If you like, not to plug a video I did, but
please do it.
If you like the John Wick movies, I had a lot of fun doing it. It was really stressful at the time, but I've had a lot of fun doing it because I get to come up with weird little, very movie technique editing stuff to try to just compress one kill into the other, and I try to make it seamless. So it was fun. I learned a lot about editing, making those. So that's kind of. Are
you going to have to continue it whenever 4 and 5 come out?
Probably,
of course.
I imagine.
Well, and I was going to say, to maintain our thread for this week's episode, we also got copyright infringement dinged for that, didn't we?
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, as soon as we posted it. Yeah.
As soon as we posted
Immediately. Which I don't understand.
I was whatever.
Again, we're only promoting these John Wick films by listing that. So, all right, I'm going to have Gabe pick this weekly poll since he's participating.
This is so fun having Gabe here.
When I put it in here, I know what it is.
Oh, you did.
I'm still producing the show.
That's true.
I didn't hire somebody this week.
It's not nearly as much fun. See, the beauty of Jake and Kevin is they don't do anything for the show prior to just showing up.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you're welcome.
Them. So, Jake, of the 3 characters that we listed, because then we gave people an other, the question was, what role will you most remember Keanu Reeves for? You got Ted Theodore Logan. Mm-hmm. You got John Wick. And you got Neo. Which of those 3 do you think won?
I feel like it's got to be Neo. I feel like Neo by a landslide.
It was Neo by a landslide, yeah. And 55%, John Wick got 34%, and then 3.7% went to Ted.
Well, and I feel like, and he's a friend of the show, and he's a friend of ours. But if you haven't seen it, the interview viral moment with MTV's Josh Horowitz, in which he's interviewing Keanu Reeves and says something about playing Bill. And Keanu Reeves says, I play Ted. I feel like that is a perfect summation of the fact that it's that character, which is sort of how I'm kind of curious as to what the reaction whenever 3 comes out is is that aside from knowing that Bill and Ted are 2 movie characters and kind of knowing sort of their bit,
Yeah.
Does the average audience, does the average moviegoer really know that much about Bill? Like, honestly, like before I watch, I got to go back and watch 1 and 2.
Same.
I haven't seen them in probably 20 years.
I'll admit, when I saw the poll go up, I went, Ted Logan. I go, who is Ted? And I was like,
See? There you go.
Ted Logan. Like the last name, I did not know that was his last name. I couldn't have told you.
Well, I'll tell you really funny, putting the poll together, I put Ted Logan and John Wick first, and then I was like, let me go to his IMDb and make sure I'm not missing anybody.
But you wouldn't put Speed on there?
I was going to put Speed as a
Johnny Utah?
fourth one. Johnny Utah was another big one that people mentioned.
But you went with Ted Logan.
I did. Yeah, well, I mean,
he's got
Billy Ted's coming up.
That's fair.
I'm trying to stay relevant.
Yeah, well, we're not getting him for the show, so.
We certainly are not.
It's amazing how quickly I turn against people when they don't want to talk to us.
But Jake, I'll tell you who we are getting for the show. Judd Apatow, the director of the King of Staten Island.
Hashtag it happened.
Trainwrecked. Trainwreck. The 40-year-old virgin. I didn't realize he didn't write Trainwreck. I just assumed he was a writer on that one.
The writer of Heavyweights.
Researching, yes, as well, too. And a teller of some amazing stories. This is a really fun interview from the point of we go through the King of Staten Island stuff. We got some really interesting stories out of him from there. And then he just decided to hang around and sort of walk through his career, highlights of different things that we love from his career, things that he wanted to share. He tells an amazing story about a trip to Las Vegas. You guys have to hear.
Are we posting video? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want you guys, if you're watching the video of the interview, I want to see if you can find a moment where Gabe and I both individually thought the same thing. Because obviously, when we're all doing this, we're not talking to each other. We're talking to Judd. And there's a moment in the interview.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Where Gabe and I both thought that Judd Apatow was about to pull out a fake penis. And I challenge you to find the moment.
Challenge.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll be easy. I mean, you can pinpoint the area of the interview because it's the moment in which we're talking about fake penises. Yeah. But there's a moment around there where Gabe and I both had this thought where we both I don't know if you can tell in the video if we light up, but there's a moment where at least I genuinely think oh my god, he's about to he has one in his office. He's about to pull it out, and Gabe thought the same thing.
Well, you're giving it
I 100% thought the same thing. I don't remember. I just cut that video. And I wasn't looking
Sean,
at
you didn't think that at all?
No, but I want to give it away.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, let's
just it's a tease.
That is a tease. So here's our interview, the Real Blend interview with the King of Staten Island director, Judd Apatow. Judd, we're a filmmakers podcast. We have loved tracking your progression over the years and seeing how you've evolved from film to film. I would love to know something that you feel like you are much better at now as a filmmaker than you were when you directed 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Well, that is a good question. I mean, I was so terrified when I did 40-Year-Old Virgin. I would be so miserable for the whole first half of the day. I remember my line producer, Clayton Townsend, was like, "You're so miserable in the morning." And I was like, it's because I'm so scared it's just not going to come together. It's not going to happen the way we want it to. And then the second I realized, the scene is good, I just kind of let down and relax. So I feel like on some level, I'm slightly more emotionally mature on the set in terms of understanding how it will go in terms of we'll do our rehearsal, we'll realize what's wrong, we'll go to the trailer and try to come up with something that might fix it. And we know how many takes we do and where we're going to improvise. And we have our notes, all my systems for bringing all the ideas from the last 3 years of writing to the set on the day we shoot the scene and knowing how to use them are pretty good now. But in the beginning, it was chaos. And I remember we had the cinematographer, Jack Green, shot the 40-Year-Old Virgin. He had just done Unforgiven. And he would do a lot of Clint Eastwood movies. And Clint Eastwood would do 1 take or 2 takes. And we're doing 8, 9, 10 takes with massive amounts of improv, running out, the mag every time. And I remember his crew just looking at us like, what are you fucking idiots doing? What is all this babbling? Clint would have gotten this done in literally 90 seconds.
To be fair, though, Clint was trying to get to golf. He was just trying to get it through.
He had a tea time and he had to hit it.
Yeah. Judd, when I last spoke with you for this film, actually, you told me a great story about the Steve Buscemi line in regards to the heroes line coming from a therapy session that you were in. And I wanted to take a deeper dive with you about how therapy has shaped your storytelling in regards to, I guess this is a two-part question. The first part of it would be, what questions were you asking your therapist that led to that helped you understand Pete's story more? And then the second part of the question would be like, what other movies, moments from your films have come from therapy? So I guess I'll start first with kind of how the Pete Davidson hero element came about in therapy.
How that came about is I felt concerned through the entire process about Pete's mental health, because we were talking about his father dying, and we were going very deep into how it made him feel, all of his pain, how he expressed that pain. And I didn't want the process of shooting the movie to be unpleasant for him. And I was just talking to my therapist about, how do I treat Pete well? How do I respect him? How can I be tuned into what is appropriate and inappropriate, and how I work with him on something that's very difficult? We shot a scene at a fire, and I knew Pete had never gone to a fire and watched firefighters put out a fire. And I thought, well, that's probably very triggering to do that.
Yeah.
And I did want to make sure that he would have a positive cathartic experience. And what we talked about was the fact that Pete's dad, is a hero, and that there's something that you cannot solve about the issue that sometimes heroes die. And when they die, they leave behind wreckage. But the world needs heroes. The world cannot survive without the people who will run in the building that's on fire and save you. They're essential. And heroes should be allowed to have families. Can't take that away from them. And so what my therapist was trying to tell me is there's no easy, logical solution to that. It's just one of those things you accept. My dad was this special person who was there for a lot of people. And in this circumstance, he lost his life. And I'm sorry it happened. But he was that guy. He needed to be that guy. He needed to be the person that was there for everybody. And there's no cleanup for it, is what he was saying. It's just tragic. And he wasn't pitching it to me for me to take some of that language and put it in the movie. He was just trying to help me help Pete. And then it slowly occurred to me as we were writing, well, this is what Pete is struggling with on some level, which is, what does it mean that my dad was willing to die for other people? And what does it mean that he didn't make a choice to never put himself at risk so he could be here for me? That's something that a child would not understand. Did you choose saving people over me? And I think that the process of making this movie and talking about it constantly for years helped Pete understand how incredible a person his father was, which he always knew, but that also that he had to be this guy, and that it's okay. And he still, loves his family, and it doesn't mean anything like Dad didn't care about us. These aren't the words that Pete would have put to it, but it's what I was inferring from spending an enormous amount of time from him, an enormous amount of time with him, because when I first met him, he would say he was mad at firefighters because why would you take a job where you might be taken away from your family? So if you're going to have kids, be a dentist, be a librarian. And he went on this run, and I realized, he's not joking. This is how young Pete felt. That rant was the movie, and it occurred to me, that's what the movie's about. It's about him realizing that point of view is not correct.
Yeah. Judd, I want to talk about, to that point, how personal this was for Pete. And I feel like I can ask this question because of how good the reviews for this movie were. But I want to talk about the risk, because it's always there, you know, whenever you make a movie, the risk of negative reviews whenever you're tackling a story that's so personal for someone else. Because if this movie, it wasn't, but if it had been ripped apart, we're talking about a story that's incredibly personal to Pete Davidson being trashed by a bunch of critics online who've never experienced what he's gone through. Are you ever hesitant to take on personal topics that are personal to someone else because of the risk of, if it goes poorly and the film doesn't work out, you're not going to be the only person that's hurt by that outcome?
I'm terrified the entire time. I mean, it's certainly some of the fuel in my tank, is, which is, can I do this in a way where the movie comes out well and Pete finds it to be a positive experience? That's my goal. Can Kumail and Emily feel like they honored their story by making a partially fictionalized version of it? I mean, Kumail's writing about his parents. Emily's parents were really super fictionalized, but it was fictionalized for Kumail, but not all of it. And so we knew, we have to get this right. You never want like everyone's family to hate them because you made a movie. And I felt that way on This Is 40 and Knocked Up, because, the majority of it is fictional, but I've got my kids in it. I have Leslie in it, and I am talking about things which are important to us. These scenes may not have happened, but they're things we're thinking about, our friends are thinking about, and I want everyone to leave the process going, that was great, and I feel that someone cared about my experience of this, but I also want it to come out well, so everyone's proud and not humiliated. I used to joke when This Is 40 came out, wow, if this bombed and people hated it, that would be rough on my children. If the whole world went, we hate your children. And in a way, Crashing was personal to Pete and Lena with Girls, and Leslie Arfin and Paul Rust with Love. I think the good stuff, usually you're in that dangerous territory. But I was scared. I mean, when I realized, I think this worked out, I was relieved.
You brought up Leslie. I've been lucky enough to interview her a number of times, and every single time I introduce myself, because they say that I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I'm based right now, she always tells me she was trying to convince you to move here.
Yes, that's true.
When you guys filmed Talladega Nights.
Well, the only real experience we had fully moving somewhere to make a movie, because we always try to avoid that just for the kids, was Talladega Nights. So in 2005, we put the kids in school there, and we were there for 4 or 5 months, and we had the best time. And when it was over, sometimes you have such a good time, you start looking at houses and you think, maybe life is better here. The kids seem happy, people are nicer, there's no traffic. This is the life we're supposed to have. And then we went back home, and now anytime anything goes wrong, we're like, we should have stayed in Charlotte.
I want to follow up a little bit on what Jake was talking about too, because I'm fascinated by your writing process. And whenever you announce a new project, something is going to be a directorial effort for you. It seems like you shape your comedy or the musical choices based on who your lead is going to be. And it might be something that Amy wrote, or the way that Pete sort of shaped that through, or it seems to me that it's, do you completely change your writing process when you're going to write for someone like Seth, when you're going to write for Adam Sandler, when you have to write for Pete, like the idea of defining a Judd Apatow comedy is difficult to me, because every time you take on a new lead, you sort of adapt and change yourself.
I think I do. When I first started out, I used to write jokes for people. So I would sit with Roseanne. I was in my early 20s, and, she was, around 40. And I would, I'd be writing like stretch marks jokes with her, and jokes about feminism. And so I became a little bit of a writing chameleon. Then I'd write for Jim Carrey, and then I'd write for Gary Shandling. And that's something I learned how to do early in my career. And I think now, they're the stories that are very personal to me, but I don't have that many personal stories. And sometimes I'm saying to someone like Pete, do you want to explore your emotional material? And And then that does define it. Oh, this is the music Pete likes. This is the rhythm of his life. This is his energy. Oh, these are the people he hangs out with. This is what Staten Island feels like. And I'm trying to be true and authentic with that. And, you know, people have seen the version for me of Knocked Up and This Is 40. And, you know, Amy Schumer's world, you know, is, you know, more funny and caustic and electric. And I tried to capture that energy, her relationship with her sister. You know, we had Brie Larson, but in real life, her, you know, her sister Kim is like hilarious and a great writer. And I'm trying to capture that. So yeah, I do think each time I have to make some adjustment, but usually you still can feel whatever my thing is in it there.
Try and follow Rich and Bonnie around for a little while.
Oh boy.
Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarlane.
Yeah, well, you do. I mean, when I make a movie, what I always think is I want all those people who populated, I want the audience to think, I wish I could go home with them. There's another movie there, you know, the Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarlane movie would be good. Yeah. Or even the lady who yells at Pete, like when he says, "Are you done eating?" And she's like, "Look in my mouth, I'm chewing." Like, I kind of want to see that movie.
You know, staying within the writing realm, one of the things that I found fascinating, and I'm sure this is a question you've probably been asked before, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts specifically on the state of comedy, where we're at right now, cancel culture, obviously, with all these. You know, you go back and watch some of the scenes in Superbad and any film, you know, 40-Year-Old Virgin, there are jokes in there that would not be acceptable today. And I'm just interested to know your thoughts on that in general, because those movies were made at a time when those jokes were, they were fine in the sense of the time and the scale of the movie that they were in. Nowadays, you know, I was talking about Jay Baruchel the other day about Tropic Thunder. I can't believe that movie got made. You know, you think about that being possibly made today. What are your thoughts on that idea? And have you had to adjust the way you direct and the way you write based on the times? And are there jokes from those earlier films that you look back on and go, man, that would definitely not work today?
I think that, you know, every time is different. And so that naturally is going to happen. I guess you could say, would I do that today? And there's another question, which is, okay, I may not do that today, but do I wish I could do it today? Right? Like, do I still think that works and is funny, but it might offend someone else's sensibilities, but I'm still comfortable with it, right? So, you know, if you talk about something like Superbad, you know, Superbad was about learning how to respect women, and the path was by being really immature. So it starts out with like, you know, we can be that mistake, right? And it was like, they just want to have sex. High school's ending. They're about to go to college. They feel like they didn't get enough experience. And slowly throughout the movie, you realize, oh, this isn't even about women. It's about two guys that hung out so much. And now they're going to different colleges and they're afraid of separating. And it's being expressed as a frantic search for women. But really, it's about, oh no, I'm not going to get to be with you. And also, I gave up most of my time to this relationship with you. I didn't focus on women. I didn't learn how to talk to them and be a boyfriend and have a healthy relationship. So, you know, at the end of that movie, what happens? They both have an opportunity to fool around with these girls, and it just goes horribly awry because they're not being respectful. So at the end, they bump into them at the mall, you know, and they try on pants with them. And suddenly the girls like them because they're being nice and sweet, trying on slacks, right? Like that's the point of the movie, which is if you're a nice, normal, sweet, kind person, people will like you, women will like you. That's a healthy relationship. But the outrageousness of the comedy is how wrong they have it at the beginning and the beating they need to take to get it. And so it would be sad if in the future you can't show immaturity. You can't show people make mistakes. You can't show people in the way they actually behave. So I don't know. I don't know if I went around with Superbad today, if people would go, you can't do that now. Maybe they would make it, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But I know I'm proud of what it says. And I know that there's probably a lot of young men. There's not a lot of messages for young men about don't be a pig with women, be respectful. And I do think the movie in its sly way is saying, if you're not respectful, nothing good's going to happen. Your life is going to be a disaster. You're just going to be fighting with Clem, the homeless man, on the bus.
I love that. Judd, speaking of sort of those ideas of timestamps, you've always included like really topical and of the moment sort of pop culture references. And this is 40. I think your daughter's watching Lost, which is my favorite show of all time. I think at some point they talk about, in this movie, they talk about Game of Thrones. I was trying to think in Knocked Up. Don't they talk about Spider-Man, or am I confusing that
yes,
with...
Leslie says... he went to Spider-Man without her.
Right, exactly. So I was wondering, and I love sort of these pop culture timestamps, especially when you go back and rewatch the movie years later. But is there ever that moment of like, wow, this really cements it in a moment of time, especially like something like Lost, which at this point has been over for 10 years?
I feel like it just has to work whether or not it's a current reference. There are certainly movies where we go overboard with the reference jokes, and we do debate for certain projects whether or not we should try to remove all of them. And like, should this be timeless? I think The Big Sick is a movie where we made a point to not lean on those types of references. We go at it really hard and Knocked Up because they have a website where they show all the nude scenes in movies. And for that one, we just debated what would be the most famous ones that in 10, 20 years people would still remember. And hopefully the joke is good enough that it doesn't matter. But I do liken it a little bit to Freaks and Geeks, because it was a period piece. They could talk about Steve Martin and The Jerk, and it felt right. That's what they would talk about then. And I hate to say it, but every movie I make at some point is a period piece. So even though I'm doing it in present time, at some point it's retro, like Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
Judd, we weren't able to talk about this the first time around, but now I can ask you about your final scene in King of Staten Island, which is really beautiful and caught me off guard because I didn't think this is when the story was going to end. Yes. And so I would love for you to just talk about how you came around to realizing that was going to be where you ended it. At what point in the process did you think, okay, well, when I bring him here to Manhattan, this is where I'm going to leave him? Because it feels to me almost like a beginning for the character also.
Well, I'll say spoiler alert for anybody who wants to pause for a little while. But basically, I wasn't sure how to end the movie. I shot several endings, and I put them all on the digital and Blu-ray release so you can see all the ways I did it wrong. So there was an ending. There was an ending I shot at the same time where you see Pete doing career day at the preschool of Bill Burr's kids. Mm-hmm. And then slowly you realize, Pete works at the school now. He's like the teacher's assistant to their teacher who we met earlier. Mm-hmm. And we shot it and it seemed really fun. And then in post, we were like, this is terrible.
I actually like that idea, to be honest.
Yeah, it made sense. I like the idea that people would think, is he going to become a firefighter at the end of this movie? And then you're like, oh no, he does something that's of service to other people, but it's the fact that you've learned that he's just really good with kids. Mm. But it didn't feel right when we edited the movie. I shot another ending moment where you see Maude back home with the family. Bill Burr is there. They're all eating breakfast. They're talking about their day. It's 6 months later. You realize that Pete is going to art school to learn how to be a better tattoo artist. And you just see that they're a family and it's just kind of like normal and they're happy and Bill fits in and they're all chatting. And then Pete takes out all these drawings he's working on in art class, and one's like of a horse, and Marissa Tomei is like, that really looks like a horse. And then he takes out some, pictures of naked men, like they're drawing, nudes. And Bill Burr is like, yeah, it's a good looking cock there. That's gonna jump off the page and poke me in the eye. And it was like a funny, sweet scene where they call back the cat, Ricky Velez's cat. And Pete says to Maude, you want to come with me to feed Oscar's cat? And she's like, no, I'm not going to that place. And he's like, I don't go in. I just throw it through the window, And again, didn't work at all. Wasn't right. With the one that we used, I knew I wanted to do that scene. I didn't know if it would be the very last scene. My daughter, who was 16 at the time, Iris, I kept asking her to read drafts as a way to teach her about film. I just had her read all the drafts, and I tried to talk to her about the work I was doing. And
That's awesome.
She kept saying, Dad, no one cares about anything but the couple. They don't care. All they care about is the relationship with Bel Pauly. And she said that during the script. She's like, you need a great end to the relationship. And I'm like, well, I kind of think people care about his relationship with his mom and Bill Burr. And she's like, they don't care. It's all about the girl. All about the relationship. And
she's right.
So,
she was right.
So we were scouting. And I was like, I didn't think this scene should be the last scene, but Iris keeps yelling at me, telling me this is all anyone's going to care about. And they're going to want this scene to be the ending. And so it's supposed to be she walks in to take her test to work for the city. And I'm looking around and I go, oh my God, that's where the Twin Towers were. I just like looked up. I'm like, oh, Jesus, that's crazy. Oh, there's the Freedom Tower and it's like poking out from behind a building. So it's not really obvious. And maybe 80% of the people who watch the movie don't even catch that that's where he is, which I like. And then we just started thinking, well, how do we shoot this? And it just occurred to us, well, maybe she walks in and he just like looks around the city and you could end the moment. I thought a lot about the ending of The Graduate. Just now what? And I shot it a bunch of different ways. And there was some versions of it where Pete like kind of shaded his eyes from the sun. And then the movie ended. And for some reason that bothered the audience because it was weaker. And then I found a take where he didn't shade his eyes and he just looks around with a little more like hope, like he's like, maybe I'll enter the city as a metaphor for maybe I'll take a chance. I have a little more support. I'm feeling a little better. Maybe because he's never in Manhattan in the whole movie. So the idea of even entering this space feels like hope. And then when we started testing the movie, it became clear that should be the ending of the movie.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's a brilliant last shot. It's funny. That was the first. It hit me. Is he geographically actually looking where the towers really were? He's looking
off, and it's like behind him. He's not looking at the towers. The towers are right, like in this. You see the Freedom Tower.
Yeah,
but it's behind another building.
Yeah. Wow. This is a completely strange transition, but I'm gonna make it anyways. One of my
I know what he's about to ask. It's the best.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Pop Star. I think that film is just a genius film, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is there are stories floating around that you are the guy in the limo scene.
Yes.
I just want to know, is that true? Where did that get started? How did that even become a thing that you were that person? And like, what's your story surrounding that? Is that you for real or no?
I can't comment about my extra work. I can't. That's part of Lonely Island legends. So
how did it become a legend? Like what's the story behind? Even if it's you or if it's not you, what's this? How did you get involved in that legendary story?
That scene was reshot. Not reshot. That was from an additional shoot at the end of the movie. We shot a couple of scenes to bolster some story ideas, and they had this hysterical, idea that you do, a goof on the woman pushing her boobs up against the glass type of visual that you might see in a silly rock star movie. Then a guy does it, and we were like, this is an all or nothing joke, because I've done a lot of things with penises and the audience gets really upset most of the time, which I love. Like, I love that it bothers them and I want to do it even more to bother them more. And it's just so
it's on screen for so long. Yeah. He signs it at one point. I cry every time I watch it. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I mean, like when we did Dewey Cox and there was this scene where he's on the phone with his wife saying how bored he is on the road, and then there's just naked people walking by, and then a guy's penis just appears and asks him if he wants some coffee. That made us laugh so hard. I don't think it's the public thing, but the guy who did that is now a famous director, but I don't know if he talks about it publicly at this point. But he said to me,
said a guy that did that,
that penis
and Dewey Cox.
In Dewey Cox is now a famous director.
It's Spielberg, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And he walked up to me at the Directors Guild Awards, which I was hosting, and he said, I know it sounds crazy, but I learned so much that day watching you guys improvise and talk and getting to hear your debates about how to do the scene. But none of us can comment on
how did you get involved in that legend of that story, though? I just want to know why your name got thrown into being that guy.
Because the Lonely Island guys love to talk about it. They just think it's important to say that publicly as often as possible.
It's not a bad rumor.
I do want to ask before we go about the fact that we just passed last month the 20th anniversary of the last episode of Freaks and Geeks, which I think is widely considered one of the greatest series of all time, even though it wasn't on very long. I'm just sort of curious, do you ever wonder what happened to those characters, like where they would be 20 years later? And what does it mean to you to have that show have launched so many different careers?
What's funny is I was in Las Vegas. I've never told this story before, but I was in Las Vegas on a trip to see Rodney Dangerfield perform. And at the time, he may have been 83, and he was still doing shows. So Adam Sandler said, let's go pay some respect to Rodney. So me, Adam Sandler, Carl Weathers, Covert, Brill, Brill, and Quentin Tarantino all went to go see Dangerfield. And then afterwards, we hung out with him and in an inebriated state, and had just a great few hours talking to Rodney, who is the reason why we love comedy so much. I remember he had a heckler that night and just destroyed him. I'm like, he's so funny. He's 83 and he's being so mean in a great way. But you know what? Also, I said to Rodney Dangerfield, my grandmother was friends with the comedian Toady Fields. I go, did you like her? And he goes, she was what she was, which I thought was the meanest thing I had ever heard. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, she was what she was. And in Knocked Up, there's a moment where Craig Robinson, does he say it is what it is? It is what it is. And the other day, that's what Donald Trump said.
Yeah.
About our current pandemic.
About the deaths in America.
It's like the worst thing you ever could say as a human being on earth. But anyway, I bumped into Feig, who was in Vegas at that time on his own trip. And we were like, we should probably write that episode, the finale, because I think we're going to get canceled soon. So Paul, maybe you should write and direct that last episode, and we'll shoot it in the middle of the season, because I think we're going to get canceled at any second. So let's just see if we can come up with something that will be a good ending, that we could jump to this episode from any episode and have a conclusion, because I hate the idea of no resolution for a series of television or series. And we were like, what would happen to her? What would happen to Lindsay? What do we do? And I was like, I think she becomes a deadhead, right? Doesn't that seem like the path of that girl, like a girl who's both a mathlete and into the potheads? It's a deadhead kind of a situation, right? And Paul wrote the most brilliant draft. It really was incredible. And he directed it. And it was the first episode of the show he had directed. He had never directed television before. He had just done one independent film that he had made with his own money. And I never gave him the okay to direct a lot, because he was the best writer of the show. He was the visionary writer of everything. And I thought, I don't want Paul to disappear for weeks into directing, because I knew that the writing would suffer in a massive way if that's where his time was spent. But I also felt guilty about it, because I knew that he would be a great director. And then he made just one of the best episodes ever on television with that episode. And so I never really think about what would happen to it, because I think Paul, he did something that's so perfect. I don't even want to consider the next day. It lands there for me.
Judd, I know we're at the end, but
awesome.
I can't not ask you why Tarantino was with you.
He was in Little Nicky with Sandler, and they are friends. And so we all went together.
That's
the best story.
I have a great photo of the group, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty when you've got Carl Weathers also in that, because he was
that's like
incredible.
that story that what was the story that like Marlon Brando, Michael Jackson, and Elizabeth Taylor like all got in a car together and like took a road trip. Like it's like the most interesting group of people that you wouldn't necessarily expect would all be together at one time.
Every once in a while something like that happens and you laugh. And like when we did the Ben Stiller show one day at lunch, we had all the guest stars who were doing this sketch with us. And so I'm like at lunch with Mickey Dolenz, Rip Taylor, and Susan Anton. It was incredible.
I just want to say, early on in the history of this show, we would break each other's balls if we name dropped anybody. You have elevated the bar.
I knew it
with one answer.
But it was the time before like photos. There was no camera on the phone, so like no proof exists of that. And it hurts me to this day.
Judd, you've seen this, Judd, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yes, the drawing, the painting on the pop star Blu-ray is incredible.
It's one of the greatest movies ever made. Man.
And there's extended versions of a lot of this stuff. Yeah, the Blu-ray of Popstar and Walk Hard have so many additional songs and scenes. So I always encourage people to look at that.
All right. Well, I know we're running out of time, but Judd, thank you so much for joining us. I want to let everybody know we've been talking about King of Staten Island since it reached digital. It's going to be coming to more digital platforms on Tuesday, August 11th, then the traditional Blu-ray and DVD on August 25th. Judd, honestly, thank you so much for joining
my
us.
pleasure.
This was a blast.
Nice talking to you.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Take care.
We want to thank Universal Studios for giving us time with Judd Apatow. We want to thank Judd, obviously, for coming on the show, and thank you guys for listening to our interview with Judd. All right, let's get to talking points. So right after we recorded episode number 129, some pretty industry-shattering news dropped. I think so, anyway.
Don't you sort of feel like
massive.
Everyone in Hollywood is just waiting until we record, and they're like, all right, guys, drop the news. They've recorded for the week. Drop the news.
It happens.
We got to start lying on social. Just tweet like, hey, we're recording right now.
So if you have any news.
On like Monday evening.
And all of a sudden, Tenet on HBO Max.
Literally, Gabe was saying, like this week we cannot record on a Monday because there's just so much stuff that could potentially happen. So it is better when we record midweek. But we're talking about Mulan. We're talking about Mulan going to Disney Plus, but not just arriving on Disney Plus, but them setting up a premium option for this rental. And it's going to be $29.99. The price point of Mulan is $30, which again, Gabe makes that face. He's generally right. I guess you can make the argument it's a family film. If you're paying for 4 people to go to the movies versus 4 people to be at home to watch it, you could argue that price point is a little bit more. But it's the idea of making it, yes, we're going to put it on Disney Plus, but we're going to make you pay a little bit extra in addition to your monthly subscription. This is one of the big titles that whenever we were discussing movies going to streaming, King of Staten Island being one of them, that made an announcement pretty early on. We were always like, yeah, but Tenet, Mulan. And then Mulan now it decides it's going to go. I don't think Nolan will ever allow Warner Brothers to do that. But let me phrase it this way. So now that we know Mulan is coming, do you think that will open the door for more films of that size? Now I'm talking like, is Black Widow going to be next? Yeah. Is Wonder Woman going to make that jump? Do you see more films like that don't have a Nolan behind them pushing for theatrical to go that, or is this going to be a one-off?
Well, I think all eyes are going to be on Mulan. Obviously, everyone's going to be watching to see. And I'll be curious to see if they are going to reveal how much money they've made off of this, or if they're going to be a little bit more closeted. Because I feel like they haven't even released Hamilton numbers to talk about how many people have watched Hamilton, which either they're being secretive or it's not as many as we think. But I feel like it's a lot because I feel like everyone was talking about it. My point being, they'll announce it if they do well. Exactly. Which is always how I feel about Netflix too. Like Netflix is very picky, choosy about the information they release. But I did see a statistic about the number of subscribers that Disney Plus has, and it's millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of subscribers that this app has, this streaming service. And then they broke down the percentage of like, okay, if 30% of these subscribers, I can't remember what the number is. I want to say it's like 90 million, but that seems high. But I want to say
I think I saw 100 million.
Okay, so like let's say it's around there.
I think I saw. I'll check.
So if 25%, if a quarter of the subscribers pay the 30 million, or I'm sorry, 30 million, the $30, it still rakes in. Then Mulan at that point, I think, makes over like $100 million.
This one says 50 million subscribers for them.
Okay. Well, the percentage, they start breaking down, like, what is the percentage it would take to get, it's not that much, not that big of a percentage of subscribers to cross the $100 million mark. It really wasn't that much of a percentage mark to cross the $200 million mark. And it doesn't seem to me out of the realm of possibility that if you already have Disney Plus, at this point, you're probably still trying to keep your kids entertained. Kids are going back to school. Yeah. Like $30. Like, I think people are starting to come around to the rationale of, yeah, okay, $30 is a lot cheaper than if we took all 6 of us out to the movies.
Sure. And I had a point. I was just going to make a point. I swear to God. 50 million subscribers. I was going for the thing. Oh, I don't even remember.
I just saw that got updated. So it was 50 million in like the beginning of May. But last week,
but Hamilton jacked it up.
Yeah, it's a little bit over 60 million now.
Okay. This is the point that I was trying to make, or wanted to make. So Mulan, even if it does a fraction of the subscribers that actually pay the $30 and it starts to make some money, it'll make more money than it's making right now, which is zero, right? And the argument is always like, sure, but wait for it to come to theaters. But here's why I think that doesn't work for Disney. Disney has so many other movies coming that like Paramount can wait for Quiet Place, because they don't have 15 other movies behind it on their slate necessarily. Disney, if it waits for one other movie to drop, it affects, I think, the release schedule of so many other films.
Especially Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Marvel can't really drop them out of order.
Yeah.
And Disney always feels like it's competing with itself to find weekends where they're not going to put out a blockbuster that's going to compete with one of their other blockbusters.
Yeah.
So I think it just felt like it was time for them to put it on there. And I don't know. I would rent it. I'm probably gonna rent it because I'm starving for new content.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, but I think the difference between a Black Widow or like a Wonder Woman with versus Mulan is the fact that the Chinese market is as open as it is now. Almost all their theaters are open, and apparently doing well enough. And Mulan is marketed to the Chinese market very much so. And that's a huge international market where I think that changes the numbers where they go, okay, we're going to make this in China. And then there are these other countries internationally that are going to move the needle this much. And then if we also can add this $30 per on US customers or wherever they're launching it on Disney Plus altogether, that starts to stack up. I see that. But I think with something like Black Widow that is so global, that is their big benefit is releasing it everywhere. That's why everyone seems to break a new record. I see them holding on to that for as long as they possibly can. So, because I think $30 for 4 people potentially to watch it at home versus, $10 to get 100 million people to come see it in a weekend or something like that. I think that's a big difference.
I tweeted this and I meant it and I kind of got ripped to shreds. I would pay $60 for Black Widow right now.
Why did you get ripped to shreds?
Because people said, well, first off, I got a lot of DC followers on my timeline who don't like Marvel movies.
That's so petty. Like the line in the sand saying that like you can enjoy one time. Like, come on, like just be a fan of good movies.
100%. But then the other people said I wouldn't pay $60 for any film necessarily. Yeah. And I don't know if that's fair. I got plenty of films I would pay $60 for. Yeah. The thing I think that dings Mulan is that it's not new. Like it's a live action remake.
Yeah. We're not pressing play without knowing what's going to happen.
And I haven't loved the live action remakes. I'm not
This is the first one I've actually been kind of excited about because they're treating it less of a live action remake and more of like a because I mean this is a true story. This is a historical story. And my understanding is they're treating it like a historical drama. I mean, they took out like the talking dragon, they took out the big musical numbers, like they're treating it almost like, I mean, based on the trailer, like a war film, based on what I've seen. I mean, I know between the three of us, like we all know people who have seen it. I mean, I don't know if we can talk about, I mean, have you heard decent things from people who have seen it?
Yeah, decent things. I've heard it's good.
Yeah.
Your voice went real high.
I've heard it's good.
I grew up with the original Mulan on repeat. I loved the original Mulan when I was a kid, and so I'm excited for it, but I don't think I'm excited enough to spend $30 on it. And I'm not spending $30 for a family. I'm literally spending $30 for myself, and that's a hard ticket for me.
Yeah.
Sean, send him your screener.
There you go.
All right, fair enough. I don't have one.
Yeah, and can you send me the Snyder cut too while you have it?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah,
I'll just I'll drag it into the Real Blend file on
Appreciate
Google Docs. So here's our weekly Tenet update. Tickets currently are going on sale for the film in the UK.
Trucking along.
No, but I'll say this. I do feel we're getting closer to things being, to new films being a reality. We talked about Unhinged. The Russell Crowe film is apparently opening in theaters that can be open safely on August 21st. So here we're talking, that's next week, right? That's next Friday. New Mutants claims it wants to be in theaters on the 28th. Like, sure, they're releasing posters and clips that it's coming. Behind the scenes, we can talk about the fact that we've been approached for a couple of press opportunities for things like Bill and Ted and the New Mutants, and we're hearing a couple of things about Tenet. So it feels a little bit like we're getting closer to things being real. Do you not feel that way? Am I the only one feeling that?
I think just because I'm so gun shy about, because I felt like this happened before at the end of June, beginning of July.
Go back and listen to all of our episodes where we said this repeatedly.
I feel, so it's sort of like, God, so funny because I was never this way before the show started, but I feel like I'm turning into Kevin. It's sort of like, okay, like if it happens, like I'll believe it whenever whenever Christopher Nolan is on my screen and I'm doing a Zoom, or whenever I'm sitting in the theater right outside my window and I'm then I'll believe it. But till then, like we've been there before, and not only have we been there before, like the headlines are still that numbers are going up.
But
so we're not back at a place where I don't understand how this narrative is moving forward about how movies are coming out when the narrative of numbers is still moving forward.
For me, what it feels like, because as far as I know, we don't really have like a hard number of like this many theaters are going to be open next week, right? Like you had mentioned, there are some in your area that you heard are going to open. To me, my feeling, and this is just a feeling, is that it's more they're confident in the international market and they're ready to market to the international market, and it doesn't help them to say, oh, but we're not going to do it here. They're just going to say, yeah, it's opening, and it'll open in whether that's 4,000 theaters or it's like 14. Yeah, I would think that they're just going to go.
But
we're open everywhere else.
I want to read you the sort of the email I got. So in regards to Unhinged. So Unhinged, the email is Unhinged opening in theaters. Advance tickets are on sale. Bringing movies back into America's lives. Exhibition partners around the nation have gone to extensive lengths to ensure the I guess it doesn't really say where it's opening, just that it's okay. Thank you for continued support of the theatrical experience. But yeah, I guess it doesn't really say like where it's opening.
So I'll mention this. North Carolina is in phase 2 of its reopening, which doesn't include theaters. And we've had two.
Did you guys roll back?
No, we never jumped to 3. We've had 2 opportunities so far to move to 3, and we haven't. Our governor is being cautious, and I'm thankful that he's being cautious.
What's that like?
Yeah. So we got an announcement about an independent movie that says it's opening in Charlotte, and it listed the 3 AMC theaters in our market that planned to have it. But then I was told by somebody who works for the Charlotte Observer here, a friend of mine, that the governor will not allow theaters to open, so that is likely not going to happen. But if if Regal and AMC and those guys announce that their locations are going to open where they can, then you may get places like Idaho, the Dakotas, places where there aren't that huge population and they're able to open. You might get a chain that near you. So again,
where is Unhinged opening at next week?
Oh, case by case basis is what I'm saying. I think South Carolina, which is literally right over the border from us, they're in a phase that would allow their theaters to open. So I bet you I could probably drive to South Carolina and see Unhinged in a theater there, but I just can't see it in North Carolina. I'll let you guys know if it's open in South Carolina. Well, maybe not Unhinged. But if they do,
I was going to say, really? You're going across state lines to go see Unhinged?
If they do Inception on the big screen down there, I might go down there and see it.
They're only doing it here in Chicago. They're literally only doing it. Like the email that I got was like the only one in the country.
Well, in 70 millimeter.
Gabe, let me have this moment. Let me have something that you guys don't. All right.
Okay, but are you going to go if it's available at the Music Box? Music Box, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Music Box.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because of safety? Or because it's a movie you've seen and can see it at home?
I think here's what, you know what? That's a good point. I'm going to say it's the latter, because if it were Tenet, then I would be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but I miss everything that comes with going to the theater. I miss the whole process.
But I want my first one back to be big. I would love, and I know this is the Kevin McCarthy narrative, but I'm with him in that, like, I kind of want my first theatrical experience back after all this to be something meaningful. Like, I wouldn't want it to be Unhinged. I don't want it to be Inception. Like, I kind of want it to be Tenet, if I'm being honest with you. I want it to be, like, after everything, I want that to be the movie that literally brings me back to movie theaters.
You know who else wants that? Chris Nolan. So we'll see. Nia DaCosta. Nia DaCosta is directing the upcoming Candyman film, and I want you guys to be able to talk about the trailer for that Candyman, because I didn't see it. But
well, it's the not the theatrical trailer. There was a sort of a very artistic trailer that came out. Gabe, what would you say? Like maybe 2 months ago? Kind of. It tells the story of Candyman, kind of in a reflection of what's going on in today's world, because I believe that this trailer came out in the shadow of everything that was going on with George Floyd, and it's told using puppets and shadows. And it is one of the most incredible trailers I have ever seen in my entire life. And from what I understand, that was all her doing. That's so awesome. If that 2-minute trailer is a reflection of not just that film, but her artistic style, give her anything and everything. Anything and everything.
Well, she's getting Captain Marvel too. That's why we're discussing her.
And there's only one direction you can go with that movie, and it's up.
It's up. Yeah, it's true. For whatever reason, though, Captain Marvel is one of those ones that whenever I pull up Disney Plus, I throw on for a couple minutes.
Why?
I'm not quite sure. I think just because it's different from all the other ones. Or maybe
you could watch Rise of Skywalker if you wanted to.
Geez.
Oh, I forgot I'm outnumbered. I forgot. Kevin, help.
Gabe, you haven't seen Little Wood, right?
No. So I'm excited about Little Woods, which was her first feature. And I was planning on catching up on it before Candyman, whenever that'll eventually happen.
Yeah.
But I've heard really good things, and everyone says that she's amazing. She's legit, the real deal.
So that's her debut for people who aren't familiar, and it has Tessa Thompson
which has me excited because Marvel directors are so often working with their usual cast, and because Tessa Thompson's already in the MCU, I kind of love the idea of Valkyrie showing up in Captain Marvel 2. I don't know what that means story-wise. I don't know if those two characters have ever hung out before or what that means, but I love the idea of Tessa Thompson in it. So,
sure. I would lure her into any sort of project.
Yeah.
So we're
especially
excited.
now that she's has a bigger role with Asgard. Great.
Also, it's one step closer to another Marvel movie feeling like Shang-Chi went back to filming. Eternals might be a movie, from what I understand. I mean,
it might exist.
That movie should have a trailer probably at this point now. I don't know what Marvel's waiting for. But anyway, Captain Marvel 2, rolling along. Although I think Captain Marvel 2 is like 7 movies down on the Marvel slate. Because if you have a third Spider-Man, Doctor Strange 2, a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them. So Scorsese, this was also huge news. Martin Scorsese, not quite friend of the show yet, but a Mount Rushmore type director for many of us, has signed a first look deal with Apple TV Plus. Is it Apple TV Plus or just Apple the company?
It's Apple TV Plus.
Right? Apple TV Plus. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a difference, but yeah.
Scorsese apparently has reached the stage of his career where he just needs financing. Like, give that man some financing. Yes. This is what happened with Netflix and The Irishman.
He now wants to redo The Irishman, but he wants to make them digitally look older.
That's awesome. He has this project that he wants to do called the DiCaprio.
Oh, the flowers. Something with flowers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I always forget the name of this.
God, I'm so bummed. He was supposed to be doing Devil in the White City, which would have been amazing. If you've never read that book, oh my God. It would have brought him to Chicago. I don't see how you shoot that movie not in Chicago.
Wasn't he also going to do that with Tom Hanks? Wasn't Tom Hanks going to be the architect?
I thought it was DiCaprio. I thought DiCaprio was supposed to be the killer.
Oh, interesting. Well, DiCaprio might have been the killer, but I think Tom Hanks was supposed to be the guy who designed the World's Fair.
God. And now I think it's going to be a series at Hulu, and I think Scorsese and DiCaprio are producing it, but I think that's the extent of their involvement.
That's interesting.
The title you guys were looking for was Killers of the Flower Moon.
I knew there's something with flowers.
I'll never remember that name.
Sounds very hippy-dippy. But anyway, so the idea of Martin Scorsese, titan of cinema, powerhouse of film, now accepting the fact that if he's going to get the types of films he wants to get made, is going to have to be going to streaming services. Truthfully, here's the thing. I'm okay with that because I'd rather get new Scorsese in some format.
I don't care who's paying for it.
This might be the episode to not have Kev here, because I know he wouldn't agree with me on this. He would fight tooth and nail for Scorsese to be able to make theatrical, and I truthfully,
but we don't know that he's
that.
not going to theater.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Is do we know if they're going to do the Netflix model? If you're making a Scorsese movie, you want to win an Oscar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to win an Oscar,
and they want to compete with. You have to imagine their biggest competitor is Netflix. And Netflix is opening up, and also now with the the Paramount Accords falling apart.
Yep.
What's to say we're not about to get Netflix movie theaters and Apple TV movie theaters, and what's to say that that's not the direction we're going in?
Well, So far, none of the Apple films have made it to theaters, correct? Because Greyhound, but that's partly due to the pandemic. Like Greyhound might have.
Well, Greyhound wouldn't have even been an Apple movie had it not been for the pandemic.
Okay, gotcha.
Have they released any other movies?
They did the Beastie Boys documentary. They did.
I feel like really just this year they kind of ramped. I mean, they had the series starting last year. Because last year they had morning show and stuff like that. But I feel like just this year have the movies ramped up.
But this is what they do. These streaming services invest in talent, right? And they start luring people over. I thought, where did Oprah go? I thought Oprah went to a big time streaming service. She went to Apple also. Yeah. Okay, so they're investing in people who can bring creative projects, and so Scorsese is signing a first look deal.
I don't know who. I think I've gotten laughed at 3 times this year for interview requests.
Oh,
and one of them was emailing Apple saying, "Hey, Oprah available? Can I chat with Oprah?" And then when The Last Dance moved to Netflix, I reached out and said, "Hey, MJ available? Can I speak to MJ?" got a soft no on that.
No,
and
such
then
luck,
when the Michelle Obama documentary came out, I reached out and said, "Hey, Michelle Obama available?"
No, Jake, where you went wrong is in the email you should have said, "I would invite Michael Jordan on for an interview, but I don't think he's good enough." And then he would challenge you, come on, and he would score 40 points on you through Zoom.
Did I learn nothing from The Last Dance?
Instead, you got Tony Cervoni, who's a big Jordan fan.
Hey, that was great.
It was.
That was, and that still frame that you took of all of our faces. If you haven't seen this, watch it. The still frame that you took of all of our faces when he drew Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
It was really great.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. All right, and let's end talking points on a fun one. The Blockbuster that's up in Oregon that our own Kevin McCarthy took a trip to is now going to work as an Airbnb. But there's a lot of stipulations about this. It's only doing it for 3 nights. And then one of you two was talking about this before the show. You have to live in the area.
You have to live in the city.
Oh, in the city of Bend, Oregon?
You have to live in Bend.
Bend, Oregon. With that doesn't seem fair. Like, this was a fun story until I realized all these rules that they're putting on it. But you can stay.
It's like the BlendGame, and then you realize, like, oh no, you can't choose that, and you have to choose this, and this is like this,
If you're able to book it, you can stay up all night and watch as many movies as you want to watch. Essentially, like you have the run of the place
on VHS.
Yeah, but that's fine.
No, I don't know if it's on VHS.
It should be. That's the way to do it. That's what your Blockbuster experience should be.
What would you watch?
Okay. What would you watch? What would I put on first?
I would put
Airbnb.
Jaws on VHS.
Jaws.
Oh, if it was VHS, you would put Jaws.
Yeah.
I would do the
I take it back.
The 2-tape Titanic.
Ooh, that's a good one.
2-tape Titanic.
I think I would check. I would do an 80s slasher movie, maybe like Nightmare on Elm Street, or because there's something about like the VHS like shaking of the and something about the course correction mixed with like 80s slasher movies that I feel like just fits perfectly.
Yeah, I think the 2-tape. Wow, that's hard to say. The 2-tape Titanic was the last VHS tape we ever got.
Do you remember when
after that
thing came to Blockbuster?
It was all DVD.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, that was insane. Oh, that was insane.
Yeah. Do you remember the crushing feeling you'd get when you go to a Blockbuster and the entire wall would be the movie that you wanted to see, but none of them had tapes behind it?
It was what's the scientific term? The Schrodinger's cat. Like walking into Blockbuster was the Schrodinger's cat of entertainment. Like you walked in and the movie you wanted was both there and not there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you looked inside and you could see
you
the
wouldn't
cat, and you
know
wouldn't know unless you opened the box.
Yeah.
We used to talk at length about the movies that got their own wall. You know, like
Titanic got multiple walls. Titanic got the whole deal. And not just the wall. Do you remember they used to do like giant wall-sized stickers that they would put on the windows, and that's how when you would know like it would be like coming soon. For some reason, I remember like Any Given Sunday getting one of them, and like I remember like looking at me like, ooh, look at all those famous, because my parents didn't take me to see Any Given Sunday. I remember being like, look at all those famous people. That's a movie I need to see. I think that might have been I think it was like maybe 10 or 11. That might have been my first Oliver Stone movie I ever saw.
And now you've spoken to every single person in that movie, Jake. Yeah, you definitely have. Jamie Foxx this week.
Yeah, Jamie
Cameron
Foxx.
Diaz, I'm sure.
Cameron Diaz.
She did Junkers all the time.
Ever in the car with her. Oliver Stone, Al Pacino.
Yeah, you've gotten all of them.
Dennis Quaid. I've never gotten James Woods.
That's fine.
Well,
you're okay. That's just fun. Gabe, what would you rent? You didn't say.
I would pick some sort of. I'd probably, especially if it's on VHS, Halloween.
Yeah, see, isn't a slasher just kind of like?
Yeah.
I almost don't you sort of wish if they redid, because I know they're constantly remaking movies to make them like more crisp and more clear, but if they put out a Blu-ray of like 80s slasher movies, but
they were like
devalued them
VHS
to make them look like you were watching a VHS tape, I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I would, and then like like every once in a while it's like was it Grindhouse where there's like a reel missing?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
That would be cool. Yeah. All right. This week in movies. Nothing on VHS, but The King of Staten Island is coming to. You could buy it now. So the thing is, when it came around the first time through its VOD run, it was a short-term rental. Now you're able to buy it on digital. Starting this week, it's going to be available to rent on Blu-ray and DVD starting on August 25th. And again, thank you to Judd Apatow for coming by and talking about his film with Pete Davidson. The one and only Ivan is another film that was supposed to be making its way to theaters, but is now going to be going to Disney Plus. This is based on a very popular children's book, and it stars Bryan Cranston.
And it's based on a true story.
Oh, that I don't
know.
That
from our junket.
That I do not know.
I seem to have heard good things on Twitter, but the thing that bothers me is that I keep seeing the word like pulls on the hearts, like sad or pulls on the heartstrings, and anytime I hear the word sad associated with a movie that's about animals, I get real like I can't do it, man. I can't do sad animal movies. Like say what you want to about me. I can watch a movie like John Wick and watch people get obliterated, but I can't put myself in a position watching like I can't do a Marley and Me, or I can't do I don't want to watch the gorilla die. I just or if that's what happens in the. But
I do think this is like a heart tugger. I think it is a story that's sort of aimed that way.
Well, then I don't want to. Then I honestly I don't think I can watch it. I just don't.
Do you still have Disney Plus? Or did you get rid of it?
No, I still have it.
You do have it.
Yeah, and I mean,
because you watch Hamilton.
Yeah, and then and right when it'll be time for me to be like, screw this, I'm like my year-long subscription is up. They'll be like, hey, Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah, which is gonna be,
all you suckers that bought a year-long subscription.
Hey,
dude, I just bought a year.
Hey, I can watch episode 2 anytime I want.
I bought a year-long subscription to DC Universe. I just renewed my DC Universe subscription, and now all these stories are coming out. Like, is this gonna fold? Is this gonna collapse?
You get your money back?
HBO Max now?
Well, I don't know. It's still going.
HBO Max, like I have for free. Like I don't pay for it. Yeah. Like if you have a subscription to HBO, you should have HBO Max for free.
Yes, you do have that. Yeah. Although I can't stream it on my Apple television. Not my Apple television. No,
your Roku.
Fire Stick. I have a Fire Stick.
Yeah, I have the Apple TV.
I'm gonna really need them to settle that sometimes.
Good luck with that.
It's pretty obnoxious. And then the Netflix film Project Power, which I think Jake and I are gonna disagree on. I'll go first and tell you guys that I thought this was a lot of fun. I didn't think it was very smart, and I think it had a great concept that it probably didn't fully utilize. But I'm gonna chalk that up to budget. So the idea of Project Power is that in the not so distant future, there's a pill that you can take that gives you a superpower for 5 straight minutes, but you don't know what your power is going to be. Some people turn invisible. Some people turn elastic. One guy bursts into flames in a Human Torch style. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I think you just described the Fantastic Four.
Yes. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is like Superman. He has the power of Superman. He's essentially indestructible. And I waited for a scene throughout the entire movie, and this is going to be a bit of a spoiler, I suppose, but I waited for a scene where like a ton of people took the pill at once, and you just got to see like a whole super powered like WWE type fight, and it never happened. But I liked the characters a lot. I like Jamie Foxx is playing an ex-soldier who's trying to track his kidnapped daughter, and he's got to work his way up through the distribution chain of people who are dealing drugs. That puts him in contact with Dominique Fishback, who's a girl who is peddling the drug. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a cop in New Orleans who wants to use the pills to give himself power so that he can fight back against the criminals who are essentially abusing it. A lot of really good ideas, I thought. Some cool execution. I thought there was a great action set piece in the middle, which is a Mexican standoff kind of thing that then devolved into a multi-person shootout. And I really liked the way that was staged and filmed. But then I'll admit that I think the thing sort of lost its energy halfway through and didn't go to nearly the amount of creative places that I was expecting. But still, I'm giving it a pass because I like the actors. I liked the concept. And I thought the execution was fun enough that I had a good time with it. But you didn't care for it as much.
I didn't. I'm with you in that I think it's a really interesting idea. And this is one of those movies that, people always sort of like, they always like remake good movies. Like, why are you remaking movies that were already good? Like, this is a really interesting idea that like, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to if someone wanted to remake this in 20 years and like, cause it's a great idea. And somewhere within this idea, you should be able to make something interesting. It just felt aimless to me. Like, it sort of felt like they came up with this idea and just sort of went like, well, just throw the characters in there. Like, well, like it'll figure itself out. Yeah. Like, I even like by the halfway point when I texted you guys, like, guys, does this get? I texted the gang saying, hey, does this get any better? I was just sort of like, where is this going? Like, what is the point of this? Like, I get other than the interesting idea. What is the point of this movie? I didn't particularly care about any of the characters. I kind of felt like despite the fact that it's a really great cast, everyone seemed to be just kind of phoning it in. Everyone, it was within the very easy wheelhouse for a lot of these. I didn't feel like any of the people were as charming or as talented as we've seen them be before. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't, and it wasn't a fun watch for me. It was a great idea that like just fizzled out. Like it started up here and just kept going. The stock just kept going down. And by the end of the movie, I was like, I'm done. I'm out. Huh.
A question on the concept. So is it each time they take a pill, they get a random power, or you just get a single power and you just, every time you take the pill, you get that power?
The latter. You get the same power over and over again.
Okay, but you don't know what you're going to get until you take it.
Correct.
Okay.
And cool. For some people, the power is like one guy takes it for the first time and he just explodes. And then that's it.
Fuck.
Yeah. So there is a gamble that might happen. But more often than not, it works out in your favor. I found this to be fairly interesting. The co-directors are Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, and they broke on the scene a while ago with Catfish. They're the two guys who...
it's those guys.
Catfish documentary.
Wait, Neve Schulman?
Ariel Schulman.
His brother, who does the show with him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Those are the two guys who directed this.
And I sort of feel like, and it's interesting because I feel like they're similar genre movies that both came out recently within Netflix. I put this in sort of the old guard category, where like really interesting premise, but a very bland execution, despite the fact that the people on screen are incredibly talented. Like both Old Guard and Project Power should have been infinitely better. Extraction as well.
You can argue Extraction falls a little bit into that.
Yeah.
Really talented folks who maybe just fell a little bit short of what they could do.
Do you think is it a budget thing? Does it feel like it's just they're just not given the...
I think so.
A blockbuster
I don't
budget?
know. I mean, we've seen incredible... I mean, look at Host. Like, we've seen incredible stories come out of movies that cost nothing.
Well, yeah. I just mean, I guess, from those are very, like, action-based. I think when you get into action, it's like, that's just...
But the action doesn't mean anything if the story itself is not there.
Totally.
The action in Old Guard was incredible. Like, there's some really great fight sequences.
I still haven't finished it.
Lame movie.
Yeah, that says volumes. Gabe's like, I haven't even finished it yet. Yeah. It's just sitting there on Netflix. Waiting for you.
It literally would cost you nothing to finish it.
His time. It would be his time.
It's pretty valuable.
All right. That brings us to this week's Blend Game. We are going to play hashtag Regina King Blend, where we're celebrating the accomplishments of the wonderful Regina King. And, of course, with Gabe sitting in the third chair, I'm starting with you, sir.
Oh. Okay. So my pick was was super easy. I don't like doing these. I'm not big on like favorites and bests and stuff. I just, I have to choose my babies.
This is like a staple. What do you mean this is a staple of the show? What do you mean you're not a big fan of Picking?
He doesn't like it.
Wasn't this your idea?
Yeah, for you guys.
Yeah.
That's the fun of producing. I'm like, hey, what if you guys did this? But even though it's recent, I did see someone on Twitter that almost changed my mind because I hadn't considered it. And it was her in The Leftovers. I forget her character's name in The Leftovers.
It's great in The Leftovers.
And I just love that show. Jake obviously turned us on to that. Fantastic show. And she is great in it, but she is even better in Watchmen. I think her role in Watchmen, and this is maybe, we talk about opening performances up to television, and this is maybe where they get a little bit of the unfair advantage because there's just so much more screen time and opportunity for them to work on the character than in a 90-minute movie. But the way her character develops and the way that she continues to play that character as her mystery sort of unfolds, it keeps getting more interesting, keeps getting better. I think the first standout moment for me was whenever she pours the coffee out with the Silk Spectre. She's trying to interrogate her kind of thing, and then she immediately just changes and is like, I'm not taking your bullshit. And that really showed she was able to balance between being a badass, being an action star, being this loving mother, and then being this extremely strong partner with Yaya's character. And that whole arc, I think, from beginning to end to the very last frame of it is impressive. And one of my new favorite TV shows ever. And we're never going to get another one, which I'm okay with.
Lindelof.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And she's just amazing.
Whenever she pairs up with Lindelof, because Lindelof was Leftovers too.
Yeah, exactly.
I also went with Watchmen. I want to throw love to Marcy Tidwell, which is her character that she played in Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, it wouldn't have topped Watchmen, but that's what I was thinking too.
So when looking back over her career, I realized that part of the reason why I want to go with Watchmen is because it feels like, although it's a huge ensemble, but it felt like a project that was tailored to her, she's arguably the lead, even though there are a ton of characters that are right at her level essentially throughout it, but she owns the material in such a way. And with Jerry Maguire or with, I think she's a blast opposite Sandra Bullock in the second, the hell's that beauty queen movie that she's
Miss
in?
Congeniality.
Miss Congeniality. She's in Miss Congeniality.
I forgot that's her, yeah.
She's a blast. She's so much fun in it. I think she stands out when she is, in a smaller supporting part. She dominates. I love Watchmen because it finally let her show everything that she's capable of doing. And I don't really like to go with something that's so recent because she's been working forever and has been doing so much stuff, but she's so dominant in Watchmen. She's so fantastic in it. And that is the type of storytelling that it's so rich in mythology that you could easily get lost if you don't have a focal point to invest in. And I think that her journey through it becomes the audience's lifeline through what can be really dense, a really dense narrative. And it's a extremely difficult point to pull off. Like, even just to throw back to Project Power for a second, Rodrigo Santoro is the villain in that movie, and I got a chance to interview him for the junket, and we talked a bit about Westworld, and we talked a bit about how he protects spoilers from people who might approach him for Westworld because he doesn't even know where they are at in the show. And he essentially says that they don't tell the actors much. Like, the actors play what they are given, but they don't know the whole mythology. And one time he got to go to Comic-Con, and a fan floated a theory past him, and Rodrigo was like, tell me more, because that's really fascinating. Like, I want to hear more of that. And I think that I would bet Regina King didn't know a ton about Watchmen, but she never comes across that way. Like, it makes it feel like she owns every bit of the story and knows exactly where it's going, even though you can never guess where that story is going. It's so unpredictable.
Yeah. That's what I love about, and you can argue that's the way her character is written, but I love that about her characters. Every time there's a twist, every time that we are revealed to something new, she's not fazed by it at all. Yeah. And Regina King is the person to hire if you want to play that. Yeah. She's just so calm and collected through the whole thing. It's great.
So I had to go with Watchmen.
I also chose Watchmen. I also chose Watchmen for a lot of the reasons that you guys said. But in a ensemble cast that good, which features Jeremy Irons and Gene Smart and just so many people. Usually with an ensemble that big, usually there's like one or two people that like you're sort of like, whenever it cuts to them, you're like, okay, come on, like let's just get through this so I can get to. Yeah. There was no one like that in that ensemble, but if anything, I kept finding myself wanting to like get back to her. just because I didn't really know what was going on, and I kind of felt like she was like my tether to this like otherworldly reality. And also, I feel like I have not I really want to. I want to give it some time, and then I want to rewatch it from the beginning, knowing everything that I know, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't realize, we don't find out until episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And but there's some things that she knows that we don't know, and I want to go. I feel like her performance will be the one that changes the most, and I realize the more about upon rewatch. I feel like which to me is an incredible talent to basically give two performances at the same time. And you've talked about this, Sean, in interviews that you've done, the performance that you give upon first watch, and then the performance that you give upon subsequent watches. And I feel like she's the one that really gives that in this show, and I can't wait to like really watch her when certain lines are delivered or when certain moments happen, to see, oh wait, how is she reacting to this? Because she kind of already knew this, or is keeping this a secret, or one way or the other.
Right. Or what she knows is just so much more important than whatever someone else's problem is. She just doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
To come back around to that Steve Carell movie, the Jon Stewart movie, Irresistible, which I thought got criminally overlooked this year. Like when I watched it the second time through,
really like way more so than everybody else.
Oh my God. When you go back through and watch what everyone else is playing once the reveal of that movie is given, I thought it was a completely different movie. I loved it. Yeah. I think I went back and looked at the box office and it made like $60,000 total.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is really
Sean,
sad.
will you give a quick, just because I annoyed you until you watched it, will you give a quick review of Host? Just because I know I was the one that was talking about it all week, and you finally got to see it. I would just love to get your thoughts on it.
It's great. And I watched it because I also got a Shudder invite, like you did, with a screening link to it. And I put it on my computer in the middle of the day. And I told Jake, I texted him, I was like, yeah, I'm going to give Host a try. And he kind of warned me off the bat. He was like, wait till the evening, watch it in the dark. And I was like, I just don't have time for that. Like, stop, it's too much going on.
Isn't it like a 58 minute
56 minutes long.
So short. It's so short. But 20 minutes into it, which is it's set up. It's a lot of setup, but not in a wasted way kind of way. Like you just get to know the characters.
And a lot of stuff that ends up paying off later.
It does.
I was gonna say, it just gets you there kind of thing.
But there is a definite moment where I felt like, okay, I can stop this now because the wild stuff hasn't necessarily happened yet. And I know Michelle will want to watch this, and it's short. But she doesn't love horror. So that night I pulled it up on the television and watched it. First off, all the girls are great. Their interactions, I'm convinced they're lifelong friends. Because the little asides that you have in a Zoom chat are just really funny. Yeah. Like they're funny.
A lot
the way
of
they play
them
off each
had
other.
worked together in the past before.
Oh, for real? Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. And there's just a bunch of great surprises. There's a bunch of real in a what seems like a gimmick of a seance on a Zoom, really, really pays off. And there's certain characters that show up early and then disappear, and they come back. There's really great practical horror stunt effects, and there's just as simple as, and it's stupid because there's moments where characters get up and move around, and they turn their cameras so that you're looking a certain way, and people wouldn't do that. Like I said to Michelle multiple times, like, okay, well, we would have stopped recording at this point now. But like something as stupid and simple, if they show you the layout of one girl's apartment, and then later in the movie they have to turn it, and she's walking through the apartment, and you know exactly where she is. So you know that like there's a bathroom on the side, and her bedroom's up ahead. But it's pitch dark and it's only lit by her laptop, and you're watching her go through, and you're basically saying to her, like, stop walking. I don't want to see where you're going.
And it's also so timely in that there are things that 6 months, maybe not 6 months, how long have we been in quarantine? Like 8 months ago, I would have been like, wait, I don't really get it. And the thing I'm pointing out is the fake Zoom background that people use as jokes, where a lot of times people record videos of themselves and like have it as almost like a screensaver on Zoom. They utilize that in such a brilliant way.
They really do.
Which really kind of shows like how much they took this moment of where we're at as society right now and thought like, what can we do with it? It felt so timely. I don't know how, I think maybe my only concern is like, how well is it going to age? Like, are people going to get this in 20 years?
But again, who cares? It works for now.
Fair. Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you liked it. So glad.
There is a sequence. What I'll tell you what to do is, even in 56 minutes, the movie takes its time. Mm-hmm. There's a sequence where a girl is going to explore a sound in her attic. And from the minute that she indicates that she's potentially going to go in her attic, you as an audience member is just like, nope, don't even think about it. And the movie takes a good 5 minutes for her to put the laptop down, reach up for the thing, pull the steps down, and every sound that happens over the course of this sequence, you're just like, nope, don't.
Sean, you did text the group multiple times. I think the word no multiple times.
Yeah. So it was really, really effective. And goes to show again that some of the best horror is just low budget, but makes you psychologically.
Gabe, did you see it?
No. I'll watch it this weekend. I'm moving this week, and I'm really excited.
It's 56 minutes, Gabe.
It's a lot of time.
What do you mean? I'm moving. I gotta move. I gotta pack.
You can't take a 56-minute break.
Yeah, I have to do it in the evening too.
Well, no.
What
I was getting at is
episode.
What I was getting at is I'm more excited to watch it in my new. I have like
in your
several
big empty
movies
house. They could have demons in it.
Yeah. Probably does.
We don't want to jump too far forward because Kevin recorded a blend game. We hope.
The tangent of tangents.
If it happens. So this is Kevin's pick for hashtag Regina King Blend. And on the other side of this, we'll have our pick for next week. So Kev, take it away.
All right, hey fellas. So this is going to be a bit of a recency effect thing for me specifically. Lauren and I just finished watching the 9 episodes of Watchmen. So for Regina King Blend, I'm going to obviously go with Watchmen only because it's the most recent thing I saw from her, but it's also the best thing I've ever seen her involved in, especially episode 8 of the series, or the season 1. Hopefully they won't do more, but episode 8 specifically was the one where the Dr. Manhattan reveal, the specific moment where, her and Dr. Manhattan are at the bar together, and then the time dialogue specifically about how he's centering his story about where they are in their relationship, and her dialogue on that particular end and that particular scene is just masterful. The way she carries herself in the show, I love the way she walks, the character walks. It's a beautiful character because there's so many layers to her specifically that she captures in such a subtlety, but yet such a badass way. She's a mother taking care of 3 kids who aren't hers or weren't hers to begin with. And the idea of that protection, but also fighting for what she believes in, the storyline with her father, the Will Reeves character. I mean, it really is just a masterful show. And Damon Lindelof, obviously, I know Jake is obsessed with Lost. But for me, this was the perfect vehicle for Regina King to really have a performance that I think is the centerpiece of her entire career. I think it completely encapsulates everything she's amazing at as an actor, from comedy to drama. The way she delivers her dialogue in these sequences is just perfection, and I found her to be absolutely stunningly brilliant in the show. And episode 8 was really the episode that really solidified it for me. For people who haven't seen it, when episode 9 happens, you get even more of her emotional arc specifically, but the whole show is centered around her story and her grandfather's story, and that entire Dr. Manhattan reveal was just mind-blowing to me. For me, this was an easy pick only because it was something I just recently watched. I watched all 9 episodes in a matter of 2 to 3 days with Lauren. My parents are watching it now because I told them how great it was. I know Jake was on this bandwagon way earlier on, but for me, I loved her in Beale Street as well. I think her performance in Beale Street, which she won the Oscar for, was extraordinary. We all know that there's a scene in Beale Street which I think won her the Oscar specifically because it was so emotional. But Watchmen gives her the capability of having a 9-episode arc, and she gets to take time with the character and breathe with the character. And I found that to be such a luxury as an audience member watching her perform in Watchmen. And to me, it was cool to see someone bring that type of brilliant acting to a quote unquote superhero element of a universe. I mean, this is a show that's rooted in elements of nonfiction, obviously with Tulsa, and there's so many elements to it that are real mixed in with the fiction. And I always find those particular stories to be so fascinating because you have a grounded character like her character in the middle of this entire universe and scope with so many different other performances happening around her. Jeremy Irons is across the universe, you know what I mean? And so all these different performances all come together and have to work to get that finality at the end of episode 9. And, for actors and characters who don't really share screens together, to keep everything intact. And I know that's probably more on the director's side and the writer's side, but to be able to have that focused through line is a really hard thing to do for an actor specifically. Think about Regina King specifically and having to act across or act not really in scenes with other actors like Jeremy Irons until later on specifically, but I found it to be just a really, truly amazing performance. And I think for me, it's definitely my favorite performance of hers, Watchmen.
Yes. Okay, so we got to do audience picks for Regina King Blend, where we had Jeff Mammon. Oh, look at this. Jeff Mammon said Southland, and Jenna Mammon, so the Mammons are playing along on the Blend Game this week, said her role as Margie Hendricks in Ray. See, I totally forgot she's in Ray.
Wow.
She's just very good.
Paul Marsh, Indy Christina, and Carrie Case all said Jerry Maguire. Michael Breen has her on the short list of the best, most versatile actors and picked Watchmen. And then Chris Folk went with season 2 of The Leftovers.
Did no one pick Beale Street?
No one picked Beale Street.
Someone might have. I might just not have caught it. I'm sure someone.
It's another great role. Her Oscar-winning role.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Although I think she was overdue. She's one of those actors that I think, but she's terrific in Beale Street. So much participation. Again, thank you guys very much. Next week, you can reach out on Twitter. Oh, Jake, you can tell him this. Next week, we're playing #RussellCrowe-Blend.
Hey!
So you can let us know your pick
via
email.
Hard.
At realblend@cinemablend.com. You can use it on social media. #RussellCrowe-Blend. He's 2 L's. 2 S's, 2 L's.
I'm really going to have to differentiate between favorite and best with him.
Crow with an E. I think this is forcing me to rewatch LA Confidential this week, which is totally fun.
Amanda and I just rewatched Gladiator.
I don't like Gladiator.
You don't like Gladiator?
I don't like Gladiator.
Who are you?
I don't really like Gladiator all that much. Although, to be
Is it the part
fair,
where he decides to run across Italy?
I just felt like running. I've only seen Gladiator once, so I probably should revisit it.
Oh, dude. And seriously, how did... I don't understand, because Gladiator obviously won Best Picture but lost Director.
Yeah.
How did Ridley Scott lose Director?
Because it's not that good.
What won that year?
Soderbergh won for Traffic.
Okay.
Oh, wasn't Traffic? Traffic was the big,
I think Gladiator an upset winning Best Picture?
It was really popular.
It came out in May.
Yeah.
It was really popular and very well respected.
It got nominated for a ton of shit, though.
Yeah.
Joaquin, friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
I will rewatch Gladiator sometime soon because I do. I know everybody loves it. It just didn't.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I don't.
Yeah.
Insider, Beautiful Mind, Master and Commander.
Insider's terrific.
Cinderella
and Master
Man.
Commander's. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a really tough one.
Yeah.
So
#RussellCrowe-Blend.
Quick
and the Dead.
Choices. Reviews for this week. Kev's dad. I'm sorry. Someone named Blender78 wrote a review titled Kev's dad or Kevin dad. Kevin dad. It just says.
I think they meant Kevin's dad.
Someone needs punctuation in there.
Kevin's dad does.
And they scream off with Dunkirk with an exclamation point. Release the Snyder Cut with an exclamation point.
It's just hot words. Just words that get us going.
Yeah. Real Blend is so much more than just 4 friends, if you include Gabe, since he finally talks after 120 episodes.
I'm here.
Playing 2 are right and 1 is wrong. That's true. We do often play 2 are right and 1 is wrong.
Yeah.
Not on purpose.
Yeah. Real Blend is a podcast that I make sure as soon as a new episode drops, whether it be a video or an audio, to watch it or listen to it because they have their own spin and own style and a ton of can't miss interviews and behind the scenes looks into movies and TV shows. From Sean's stories to Jake's sarcasm about quitting every other episode and Kevin
I haven't done that in a while.
No, you've been enjoying yourself here.
I think it's been like 2 episodes.
I didn't say that. I just said I haven't.
I think you might have quit on the last premium episode.
He quit on the first premium episode.
First premium
for sure.
So yeah.
Yes.
Well, you see what you get.
That's
if you pay that $5 a month.
Got to come over and join us to hear.
You get
Jake
you get the goods.
Let's see. And Kevin geeking out at film grains and how the score is a leading category and his amazing puns. Amazing puns, he says. I can't thank you guys enough for creating this. You guys are all one of a kind. Well, thank you, Blenders78, who called this thing Kevin's dad. Speaking of the Blenders, I want to point out as well, too, that we have that Reddit thread that a bunch of blenders started.
Well, subreddit.
Yes, thank you. And they are going to do on Thursday night. So if you hear this, you might want to look into it. They're going to do a viewing party of Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, because tomorrow is the 10th anniversary.
To coincide with that. Yes, they are. And so a group has gotten together. And then prior
I
to
did that junket.
the Netflix, the Facebook Blender community was led by Arthur Mingo, who did a screening of Uncorked. So all of a sudden, our Blender families are putting together these really cool screening series.
Doing stuff without us.
Yes. Well, I miss being able to do meetups. Like, that was always fun.
What's like the next big episode that we would quote unquote do something for? 150?
We could do like a
150,
like a quarantine meetup. You try to figure out like a
I would
something
like
online.
to do that, like a Zoom type quarantine meetup.
Talk later.
Anyway, yes. You know where you're going to find out about that?
We're going to commit to it right now.
You will hear
tomorrow.
about it in the bi-weekly newsletter that's part of your Real Blend premium subscription
Have you sent one of those yet?
membership.
Friday.
The first one is going out Friday. I wrote
wanna
it the
get
other
it.
day, and I'm really excited by it. I had a really good
send it to me?
topic. No.
I swear to God, if the topic is release the Snyder Cut, I'm hitting delete immediately.
It's why Kill Bill is 2 movies.
No.
It's not. It's not.
That would be pretty funny.
I guess you could go ahead and tease it. Go ahead and tease it. That's a good time to tease what you're doing.
Well, so the newsletter is going to have a story that I find interesting, some type of topic that I want to comment on. Then, and in case you missed it, section where we pull out some interesting stories, and then a film recommendation that I see is on streaming service that I think the Blenders would like. This week, to kick it off, I discussed how I started to read Dune and then stopped. And I'll tell you in the newsletter why I stopped. So it's about Dune. And then, well, I don't want to give away the streaming. You'll find out.
You'll get a couple.
You'll find out what the streaming recommendation is when you get the newsletter, which is coming out. So if you want to get in on the Real Blend premium subscription for $5 a month, you go to bit.ly/Real Blend Premium and join some of the amazing people that have been sponsoring the show or looking for additional content. So until next week, you guys can follow us obviously on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, and at Sean_O'Connell. Gabe, your Twitter feed is
At Gabe Kovac. See it underneath me if you're in the video.
at Gabe Kovac. Drop us a review and we will read it on the show, and tune in next week and also give us feedback on the Judd Apatow episode. I'm curious what you guys think. So until then, I guess
Kevin's not here. What do we do? Dunkirk?
Dunkirk.
Come back, Kevin.